Hi, my name is Konstantin Baum. I'm a master of wine and I ask you which topic I should cover next, and the vote is in. So today I'm going to focus on Germany, but instead of just talking about the wines from my home country, I went through hundreds of the best dry German Rieslings in order to find my 6 favorites, which I will taste together with you today. So hold on to your seats, ready, set. If you follow me on Instagram, as many of you do, you know that I was recently at the VDP Große Gewächs Prevue tasting. This tasting is one of the best organized tastings in the world. Every taster gets a table to work from and you don't have to walk around and wait for your wine. Instead, you just order flights and the skilled staff brings them to your table and pours them for you. This is how I managed to taste and write tasting notes on 150 wines per day, even though that's not necessarily great for my teeth. What also makes this tasting special is that only the best dry wines from most of Germany's greatest wineries are being poured. As many of you love Riesling, I really wanted to focus on Germany's flagship varietal, even though I also tasted the Pinots and Silvaner at the event. The VDP, the Verband Deutscher Prädikatsweingüter, was founded in 1910 as the Association of Natural Wine Auctioneers. The term natural wine back then was referring to wines that were not chaptalized, but it's interesting to see how the term has evolved over the years. Today, most of the best wineries in Germany are part of the VDP. The organization has its own classification system, which is loosely based on the Burgundian model. The estate wine is the Gutswein, the village wine is the Ortswein, the Premier Cru wine is the Erste Lage, and the Grand Cru is the Große Lage wine. Große Lagen wines can only be made from the permitted grape varieties, and Riesling is the only variety that is allowed in all 13 wine growing regions. They have to have a yield of less than 50 hectoliters per hectare, the grapes have to be hand harvested, and the fruit can obviously only come from classified vineyards. A dry wine from a Große Lage is called a Große Gewächs, and this is the wine style that I'm going to focus on today. Große Gewächs wines can only be released to the market on the 1st of September following the vintage, and yes, these wines are still way too young, they are meant to be aged. But anyways, I'm going to taste the wines going north to south roughly, and I will tell you about the differences of the different vineyard sites, but also about the differences of Rieslings from different wine growing regions in Germany. We're starting off at the Mosel, one of the most famous wine growing regions when it comes to Riesling. And Mosel Riesling for me is always a little bit more fresh, a little bit more refined, a little bit more vibrant. Some might say this is due to the slaty soil, but I actually think it's mainly due to the climate and the extreme conditions there. It's very, very cold and fresh there, and on top of that you have these very steep vineyards, these steep slopes that really force the vine to dig deep and produce concentrated aromatic fruit. The first one is actually a tank sample, the 2020 Uhlen Blaufüßer from Heymann-Löwenstein. The Löwenstein family has been producing wine in their home village Winning for more than 500 years, which is already completely insane. In order to deconstruct German wine names, I want to tell you what the name of the vineyard actually means. Uhlen might come from the German word for owl. Blaufüßer means blue feet, and Lai goes back to the Celts and is a reference to slate. The soil of the vineyard is Devonian blue-grey slate. The vineyard has an exposition to the south and southwest, and the vines are pretty old, over 60 years old, and a significant portion of them is ungrafted, which is not uncommon in the Mosel, as the Phylloxera laus isn't really able to survive very well in slaty soils. On the nose, this is wild but also refined. This was fermented with indigenous yeast in wooden barrels, so you got some wild spiciness coming through together with the quince, lemon and peach notes. On the palate, it's very typical for the Mosel. There's lots of freshness and vibrancy, but also quite a lot of depth and concentration, even though this is not a big wine at all, but it's still profound. So this is really beautiful, really intense, really complex. I do like this wine a lot. So even though this is just a baby, it's a tank sample, I would still rate this quite high. I would give this 95 to 97 points. A really beautiful, complex, intense Mosel Riesling. The next one is the Volxem Scharzhofberger Pergentsknopp. The Volxem winery is based in Wilting on the Saar, and the Saar wines tend to be even fresher and more vibrant than the Mosel wines. The vineyards here date back to Roman times, and the winery itself has a long history. It was taken over in 2000 by Roman Nowotniczanski. Scharzhofberger is one of the, if not the most famous vineyard in Germany. It was here where the most expensive bottle of Riesling ever was produced, the 2003 Egon Müller Scharzhofberger Trockenbeerenauslese that retails around $16,000. The Pergentsknopp is a lieu-dit, a parcel within the Scharzhofberger, and the vines here grow on extremely weathered red and grey slate. This wine was rated the best wine in Germany in the past, and I really liked it in the tasting. So let's see whether I still like it. The wine is very young and also very tight. You also have some SO2 notes coming through, but once all that disappears, the fruit shines like a laser beam. You got green apple, peach, and also lemon zest flavors that aren't big, but very, very precise. They are intense, even though they are not big and concentrated. It's a bit like a violin playing in the middle of the night. On the palate, this is also very, very precise and very long. You got lots of freshness coming through, and it stays in your mouth for a long, long time. I already regret that I pulled the cork today, because I think in 10, 15, 20 years this will really sing. But I would rate this wine 97 points, so this is amazing. We're moving on to the Rheingau with the 2020 Kiedrich Gräfenberg from Robert Weil. Robert Weil is one of the institutions in the Rheingau. It was founded in the 19th century, and today they have roughly 90 hectares of vineyards, all dedicated to Riesling. The Gräfenberg is apparently the only vineyard in the world with an unbroken streak of producing every Prädikatslevel from Cabinet to Trockenbeerenauslese every vintage since 1989. So whatever that actually means, but it's a very famous site that produces amazing wine. It's a steep and stony southwest facing vineyard, and it produces very elegant, refined wines. It's a bit more difficult to define what the Rheingau actually tastes like. To me, the wines tend to be a bit more rich than the wines from the Mosel, and tend to go more towards the ripe apricot than towards the white peach character that you find in the Mosel. So there's a bit more concentration, a bit more opulence there. So the wine is very elegant, very fresh. It smells a little bit of orange, a little bit of apricot. On the palate, it's quite intense, but very, very dry and quite grippy. So there's a lot of freshness and very crystalline acidity. So this is an absolutely beautiful wine, and it is actually a little bit more ready now than the Scharzhofberger before, but I think the Scharzhofberger just had a little bit more depth and concentration. So I would rate this 96 points, very, very good, but just not quite as good as the previous wine. The next one is the 2020 Dönnhoff Niederhäuser Hermannshöhle. The Dönnhoff family has a long history in the Nahe region. In the 1920s, they started bottling their own wines, and today Cornelius Dönnhoff is running the estate in the 4th generation. The vineyard is named after a small mine, also called Höhle, in the middle of the hillside. The hillside faces south, and the vines grow on blackish gray slate. The vines are up to 70 years old, and the yields are pretty low, which means that you get a pretty concentrated, intense wine. The Dönnhoff family also produces amazing sweet wines, but I really liked this dry Große Gewächs wine, so I'm looking forward to tasting it again. Stylistically, the Nahe reminds me of the Mosel. The wines are very fresh, very vibrant, very precise, but it usually has a little bit more power. So people often say that the Nahe is a little bit in between the Mosel and the Rheingau. The aroma is beautiful. There's the white peach, there's the core of the apple, and there's also something that reminds me a little bit of vanilla, but not the kind of vanilla that you get from oak. It's an exotic kind of spicy dimension to the wine. On the palate, there's so much juiciness, freshness, vibrancy. The acidity is really like super precise, very direct. So this is quite beautiful. So for me, this is actually the best wine in the tasting so far. I would give this 98 points. So it's a bit above the Scharzhofberger Pergentsknopp. So a complex, very beautiful wine with lots of precision, lots of length, and it's hard to beat this. Now we're moving to Rheinhessen, and I'm tasting the 2020 Kühling-Gillot Pettenthal Riesling. The Pettenthal site is the steepest site in Rheinhessen. The soils are quite rocky, and the vine really has to dig deep into the soil in order to get water and nutrients. Pettenthal is probably a reference to the time when the valley was still owned by monks. Paterstal loosely translates to Valley of the Monks. Today the winery is run by Carolina and Hans-Oliver Spanier, who also run the winery Battenfeld Spanier, another great producer in the region, and they are organically certified, and they do biodynamics in the vineyards as well. Rheinhessen is a bit more difficult to describe in terms of style. It used to be a bulk wine producing region, but today there are some really good producers there, and it's really a hotbed for wine quality production. and therefore it is not 100% clear what the style is going to be in the future. For me, Rheinhessen is a bit more rich and concentrated than what you get from the Rheingau, but oftentimes it is very reduced in terms of fruit flavor, so it's not so opulent in fruit flavor, it's more precise, has a little bit more body and broader shoulders, but it's not like in your face aromatic. So let's pour this. Oops. The wine is very intense and complex. You have lemon zest, orange flavors, but also a little bit of honeydew melon. There's also some spice notes coming through. It feels like the wine was fermented and matured in oak. I think they only use large oak vessels, but there's a touch of woody flavor coming through as well. On the palate, the wine is a little bit more rich and broad-shouldered than the previous wines. It has more body and concentration, even though the alcohol is at 12.5%, so it's not an alcoholic wine. The acidity is a little bit more rounded. It's not as fresh and vibrant as what we had in the previous wines. So this is a bit more Burgundian, maybe you could say, a little bit more rounded, but really beautiful. I would give this wine 97 points. It's a super complex, really exciting wine. The last one is the 2020 Bürklin-Wolf Pechstein. The Bürklin-Wolf estate has a long history and dates back to the 16th century. They are one of the largest premium producers of wine in Germany with 85 hectares of vineyards, and all of it is certified biodynamic since 2008. The Pechstein vineyard is one of the most famous vineyards in the Pfalz. It's 17 hectares big, and different to all of the other vineyards that we discussed, it's actually a pretty gentle slope. It gets its name from black basalt rubble that came from a crack in the soil where magma basically came to the Earth's surface and turned into basalt. So this was actually my favorite wine in the tasting, so I'm excited to taste it again. Pfalz Rieslings tend to be more rich and concentrated than everything else in Germany basically, so they are a bit more full-bodied, a bit more concentrated, but they still maintain their freshness and vibrancy. They are just more exotic in flavor profile and can be really, really good. I gotta say, I do love my job. It's really amazing to taste these great wines side by side. The wine is just super profound. It smells of lemon, and there's quite a lot going on there that is very difficult to put into words. So it's very complex, very rich and concentrated without being overpowering at all. On the palate, it's really deep, concentrated, textured, really rich. It almost feels umami, so there's almost like a meaty dimension to it. There's lots of freshness, lots of acidity, vibrancy there, but there's also quite a lot of body and richness. This again is not a powerful wine in terms of alcohol. It has 12.5% of alcohol, but it is just a very profound, very complex, very rich wine. I gotta say, this is still the best wine in the tasting, and I'm going to rate this 99 points. So this is the highest rating I think I ever gave a wine in one of my videos here on this channel. It's a beauty. It's a real beauty. This was an outstanding tasting. It was great to have 6 beautiful wines in front of me. That really represents the pinnacle of what is possible in Germany. And you also have to bear in mind that these wines may be more expensive than they used to be, but they're still pretty cheap considering that they represent the best of the best what you can do with the grape variety Riesling. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, then please like it down here. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already. My question of the day has to be, which was the greatest German Riesling you ever tried? Please comment down below. I hope I see you guys again soon. Until then, I'm going to retaste these wines here in front of me, and you stay thirsty. Bye.